It's 4:30. We'll call the meeting to order. Let's have roll call.
We do the pledge first. Number 2.
I looked at
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, now roll call.
There's Luby. She's excused. Ermely.
Here.
Akbar. Here. Hag. She's excused. Minell.
Here.
Pensignal.
Present.
Any public comments? Nothing. All right, minutes from previous meeting, approval of minutes of previous finance and HR meetings, September 16th, 2024.
Move to approve minutes as presented.
Motion by Pinson.
Second.
Second by Manel. On the question? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Acknowledge work product transmittals. Boy, I can't read either. 5, October budget status report.
Move to acknowledge budget status report for October.
Motion by Pinson.
I'll second that.
Second by Manel. On the question? All in
Just
favor?
one question on the due from enterprise water utility.
That is your payment in lieu of taxes.
Sorry?
It's the payment in lieu of taxes. So per PSC regulations, we're able to put a charge on all the utility bills, and it's more or less a tax on the utility assets that gets paid to the general fund.
Anything else? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. TIF 1 and 2 detail reports for October.
Move to acknowledge TIF 1 and TIF 2 detail reports as presented.
Benson.
Second.
Second by
Akbar.
yeah, thank you. I had you crossed off and circled and I thought, okay. On the question, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, so carried. Legal detail for October.
There were none.
Educational presentations and reports. Number 8, overview of the 2023 audit.
So I do have a memo in there. One of the big things that we kept talking about how good the general fund was doing, and we actually did good. In the financial statements, we didn't end up with a humongous surplus, but if you did look up a little bit above that line, you'll see a transfer out of $500,000. The surplus we had in 2023, we were able to transfer $500,000 to the capital projects fund. We used those funds to put towards some of the public safety expenses that we had that we're not borrowing for now, since that building renovation is not moving forward. We also used it for some of the fire truck expenses that we had in the past. Our capital outlay paid to safer. We used some of those funds to replenish that. Other than that, we still had a budget surplus at the end, so our fund balance did increase. Is there any specific questions you had on the financial statements?
Questions? And any of the transfers?
The only other transfers that are common transfers, we do transfer funds out of the general fund for the recycling fund. We pay for the landfill. And then I think we transfer funds from both from TIF 1, we transfer to the capital projects fund of TIF 1 to pay for Weston Avenue. I think those were the couple highlights I had. Any other questions on the financial statements?
Any questions? Okay. I'd like the motion to place on file.
I make a motion to approve it.
I know.
Second.
Second by Jim Pincinel. On the question, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so carried. All right. 2025 budget overview.
It's been a while since this committee has seen the budget, but the board, in the final approvals, the board approved a 3% increase across the board for wages. There's approximately a 24% increase in health insurance that we ended up having. We applied a budget surplus of $105,000, meaning we anticipate a surplus of the 2024 budget of $105,000 that we can put towards next year's budget. The reason normally we don't do stuff like that, but one of the reasons that we were able to do that is because the village is planning on getting a referendum and trying to increase their funding for fire. If it's not going to be next spring, it's going to be the following year. We will need to have additional funds to help pay for the increase in SAFER. Most of that increase is coming from the increase in wages. SAFER unionized this year, and as a result of that, the wages went quite a bit higher than they have been in the past. Another thing to point out on the approved budget is municipal court. In the previous budgets, we recorded the revenues and the expenditures separately. With the current situation, we are recording them net. So you're going to see a total decrease in the expense side and a smaller revenue budgeted in the revenue side. We have reduced the amount of human services because of the non-dog stray contract that will be paid by Mountain Bay. One of the big things we did this year is we reduced our salt budget for 2025 after having several years of a surplus on that line. We moved forward and reduced it, so don't blame us for the excess snow this year. And finally, the estimated assessed tax rate for the village is approximately $5.90, $5.89. We'll have to see how that rounding comes out with the county. It's a decrease of $2.21. It's basically because of the revaluation. At this time, Wednesday, we did not have the levy certifications yet. I did get them from the county. The county did go down. Let me bring up that final number that I planned on seeing.
Is that on the slide?
It is.
There you go.
Oh, I did not go toward that. Are we gonna go through the PowerPoint yet? Were you going through the PowerPoint?
Kind of, yeah.
Oh,
Your phrasing was working great with the slides.
awesome. So at this point, the 2024 assessed tax rate, we're looking at $16.04. What do we got up there? $16.03. So that's an approximate dollar amount right now. We do not have the school tax credits yet. I'm waiting on that. It's estimated. I used last year's number. I don't know if that's right. I have a hard time guessing on that one. Anyway, so approximately $16.43 right now.
But if the state credit came in more, then it could be even less.
Yep, and if it comes in less than I projected, the rate will be higher.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yep. What's the next slide you got there?
We were estimating 16, so
Okay,
pretty close.
Jessica,
yes,
go back to that last table. Is
yes.
that school district rate reflective of due to our revaluation too, that it went down?
Everybody's rate is reflective.
Of the revaluation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Both the school and the county reduced their levies though.
But the school district probably didn't almost half theirs. So like
It
that's,
actually was a pretty significant decrease. So in 2023, the school district's levy was 12.4 million. It didn't have, but in 2024, it was 11.7. So the tax rate went from $10.35 to $6.71. So it was a significant 35% decrease.
No, that's the rate and that would,
That's the assessed tax rate.
yeah, but I mean, would be affected by the fact that we reevaluated.
Yeah,
They only need to collect X number of dollars. And so that if, and they could use the $10 one, they get a lot of extra funds.
yeah.
The budget though for the Weston portion of their budget went down over $1 million though. this year, too. They had.
Yeah, went from 12.4 to 11.7.
And the county, they did a reduction of like 9 cents and reduced some contingency dollar amounts, so they also took a reduction.
It went from 6.6 million to approximately 6.4. 6.3.
Okay, any other questions, comments?
Well, look at the next slide. That gives a really good idea of what a tax bill. So we had the reassessment this year. So normally we say, well, a house, $250,000 house used to have this tax bill, and this year it's this tax bill. Kind of hard to do it this year. So I looked up a couple different properties, the old tax value, the old assessed value, and then with the new assessed value, and that's proposed increases in the tax bill for those two properties. So if you, it's kind of hard to go, not go, you have to go one by one because there's no increase that's going to go for everyone.
And that's based on the numbers that you had on the last table, right? So if those move a little bit, that number will.
Yes.
Work.
Yep. I was excited to see it wasn't too big of a difference. So I replaced these numbers with old numbers. So last year's tax bill for a $250,000 house, I think it went up $280. So, I mean, a little bit higher increase than we had last year, but I think that's to be expected with the way the reassessment went for a lot of the residential versus commercial. If anyone needs help calculating, or if you have neighbors that have questions, have them give us a call. I can get these numbers preliminary. Obviously, nothing's final yet, but I know some people started freaking out when they got the reassessment. Greg's letter should have eased some fears, but we do have the final numbers in, so, or semi-final.
But the estimate in the letters was $16. The equation that we provided everyone was a $16 to do the new calculation on their assessed value. So we were pretty darn close with the estimations.
Yeah.
What's on the last slide? Was it
That
16?
yes,
Otherwise-
16 and 3 cents.
1603, yeah.
All right, any other questions or comments?
We can finish off this slide presentation. This just shows your general fund revenue split. We get 59% of our revenues from property taxes. That did go up from previous years in the past. Go back to that one spreadsheet where it talks about the tax levy. Up. There, this one. Back. Down. Sorry. Okay, so the total proposed levy increase for the Village of Weston is $334,585. If you're gonna look at our public hearing notice, you're gonna see $135,666 is for the general fund operations. $292,000 is for debt service. But there is a reduction. So in the previous years, we've always levied $93,000 for capital. That has gone away. That has shifted back to the general fund because we used to get the utility payment for the Weston power plant from Rothschild. Rothschild used to pay us approximately $93,000. That has ceased. So next year we will not be getting those funds. So that is why we had to move the 93,000 from capital back to general fund. So if you actually did the calculation, general fund operations tax levy only practically increased $42,000. So if you look at our levy limit worksheet for operations, our increase was $42,000 in taxes only. The majority is for the debt service fund. And it's a combination of our building plus new projects going forward. We are issuing approximately $12 million bond. This week on the 20th is going to be the sale. So this new debt service that we have up there incorporates that new bond that we will be issuing.
What rate is expected?
I don't remember. Was it
4% or less.
4 or less? Yes. So we have the resolution that the board approved last meeting was Jamie and I can actually approve the sale if it is with the parameters of the resolution that was passed. So if it's not under 4%, it's not being sold on Wednesday. So I Greg has not hinted anything negative, so I feel they're positive that the sale will go through. So.
And our ratings stayed the same at AA3, so.
Yep. We had our bond rating and the Moody's issued their opinion on Friday, so. Everything looked good there.
Anything else?
I'll keep going.
Expenditures.
Yep, expenditures, same thing. Public safety is approximately 52%. Public works is the second highest at 24%. And then the last one, where do your tax dollars go? So this was a really neat exercise. I approximated medium house is approximately $250,000. Villages portion of that is $1,474, about $122.85 a month. And I broke that down, general debt and pool, and in total, had it broken out on the departments also. So when you look at it this way, it's not so bad for all the services you receive from the village. Yeah.
Will this get included with our Christmas cards in December? You do a really good job. You got the dollar and it's broken out and the county gets this amount of the dollar and whichever, but can you
This
put
might be
this in
better.
there?
Yeah. We can get that incorporated in here.
Thank you.
Correct the mountains then, if you do that.
Pardon?
We can't have everything, Barb.
The public safety includes Mountain Bay Police Department. I think that's how you spell mountains.
Oh, there's an extra A. That's easy. We can fix that.
I'll fix it.
I
Thank you.
wasn't gonna comment on it, but.
Oh, you're sure. Thank
We're
you.
just testing to see if you're.
Okay, but if you're gonna send it out, then I think you should
Oh, yeah.
correct it.
Thank you.
Okay, is that?
I think that's it.
Okay. Okay, then, you want any kind of action or?
You don't have to. It's just kind of an FYI.
Okay, then we will go old business, anything? New business, discuss and or action incorporating committee commissions into an annual evaluation process for department directors.
Maybe before there's a motion, this item and the next item were both requests from trustee Pinsnell, just to have a conversation about it. I did have a memo in the packet. So the current practice is that the board of trustees complete the annual evaluation for the administrator and the administrator completes for the department heads. From my prior experience, that's common practice, that's standard practice. But if it's a conversation for the committee and trustee Pinsnell probably has some reasoning or thoughts that he wanted to add to the item.
Yeah, I just thought we're starting to incorporate a lot of this peer evaluation stuff to include with the police chief, to include with other positions, and I thought it would be worth talking about here as far as, so for the department heads, would it make sense to do that same peer eval, with each department, right? So, Jessica would be the finance director, right? So we all work directly with Jessica for finance stuff. Would it make sense for us to fill out that report card for Jessica? How is that stuff working? Because I don't want to say we work together directly, right? We're not Jessica's direct report, but we worked directly with her. Just like with the administrator, the board would do the same thing with the administrator. So I thought it would be worth having that conversation since that process is close to starting, right? Or is in the midst?
Evaluations have started, yes. Yep.
So 'tis the season.
Anybody got any comments or thoughts about that? Doing, the committee doing evaluations?
I'll be honest, I'm not in favor of. My concern is that it's gonna lengthen the process again. And that's a big concern of mine because it just, in the past, have been so strung out that you just got tired of looking at the personnel issues, on the evaluations and stuff. It just seems, I'd be cautious about that. That's just my feeling.
When I think about providing a review and evaluation for Jessica or anyone else, I would have difficulty to provide a lot of helpful feedback outside of what I'm seeing here. That would be my only hesitation, is I see only her actions when we have committee meetings. For addressing the length of providing feedback, I think you could get around that by doing some sort of a quick electronic, couple quick questions to send out, much like a survey. And I think that would be quick. You'd fill it out online, boom, you have it, it's done. If you wanted any type of feedback, I think that would solve maybe your concern of the lengthiness of it, but I personally wouldn't have a lot of helpful feedback myself.
I hate to say that finance is a bad example because I think finance is, I don't want to say autonomous or works really well, but maybe public works would be a better example, or because you guys can't do anything by yourself. No. But just because you touch so many different projects and things and impact so many different areas that there's 5 public works committee members, that they would be able to maybe give a better input to feedback of hey, yeah, we do well here, we could use improvement there. It doesn't mean that their impact directly, it's just more data, I guess, to look at that. And I don't think it has to get super lengthy. Like you said, it could be 3 questions out of 1 through 5 and any comments that you have on it or something. It doesn't have to be pages of essay, but.
And the feedback would go directly to you, Jamie. And then you would look at it and like, is this helpful? Is it hurtful? Is this a surprise? Because nothing should ever be a surprise during the review process.
I guess I think it would be helpful if we knew, or if there were certain assumptions that the committee was aware of that they could evaluate us on. Like, is the department director prepared for the meetings? I mean, stuff like that are good, but obviously it's not a total evaluation, so it'd be more of a recommendation from the committee to the administrator, I would think.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose if we had, say, a dim view of what you were, accomplishing or whatever.
Well, if I think I'm prepared and
yes,
there's nothing ready, we canceled often.
I kind of agree with you though, that I'm not sure, other than I also get to see you in other meetings and such and have worked with different things, but I just wonder how many committee members really, it's just kind of a one kind of a glance you're dealing with. I'm not sure how helpful it would be. I'm just,
There's nothing, I did include in the memo, but there's also nothing that precludes any committee or commission member, if they had a concern or they wanted to share praise or constructive criticism, from addressing that at any time. And maybe that's just on my behalf, a reminder that that exist, just to say like, you know, don't forget that you can always do that.
I mean, I guess I'm kind of neutral on the thing. I'm not necessarily against or for.
Do you get peer feedback amongst each other, like the directors get to provide feedback on each other's performance? Because you guys work really close together day in, day out within each department. That might be more beneficial to get that level of peer feedback.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we do it formally, but informally, we'll say, hey, we should do this differently, or and I guess I don't know.
Informal doesn't count if it's not.
Yeah, it's not documented, yeah, so we don't probably do that, you know, like on an annual basis of here's 4 things we wanna, you know, or list 2 things we should do better, or 2 things we do really well, and.
Of course, yeah, I was just gonna say, and over the years that there have been certain committees that some committee members had a problem with some staff, you know, how it was being done. So I guess in one way, in that case, it would be maybe helpful, you know.
I think the
We're
Jamie's-
lucky with Jessica, there's not much to complain about.
Yeah. I mean, I think to Jamie's point, I guess I can speak for myself, like I want feedback, like good, bad, and different, you know, it's just growing up playing sports, you don't want to wait until the end of the game for the coach to be like, hey, in the first quarter, you did this wrong, you did it wrong the rest of the game. Like, you should have told me that right away, I would have fixed that, right? Like, so if there's ever anything you guys see that, hey, that looks like we should check on that a little bit. I guess for my own self, I'd say, yeah, let me know. I guess we don't necessarily maybe have and that's what we do internally more often. And I guess that's where the documenting, hey, this conversation took place and we reviewed, you know, we don't have a Joe's, you know, how Joe did X, so now we need Joe to do it this way instead.
I think if we had just some simple questions, like you said, from you, have you had any issues, you know, with that employee, or, you know, comments? I suppose it wouldn't hurt much to get a little bit from the committees.
Does the board do it now for the
administrator?
Just the administrator only?
Mm-hmm.
I guess as a former board member, it could be a benefit to having the board members do the department heads.
We don't know enough of them.
But no, but you sit in different committees.
Yeah.
And you get exposed to it at the board level and then also at the committee level.
Right.
So having you two give an evaluation of other people is helpful because you see them, you see it through the committee and you see them through the other thing. I don't think that I would be able to contribute anything. You know, I mean, I have questions sometimes on the financials and stuff, and I can talk to her, or I ask the questions in here and then I'm satisfied, you know. So I don't know if I would do it. I don't want to sound that I'm afraid of doing it. I'm just saying that as a former board member, I think you got different exposures than what I've been getting as a committee member.
But I think it would just be on committee level. It wouldn't be.
Right.
But like I said, I'm pretty neutral on it here. So.
I think to your point, Steve, that's a perfect example of how Barb just said earlier, like we've had committees or department heads in the past that there were problems, right? And those are the times when you were sitting in this chair and, oh gosh, I'm not gonna use Jessica, but whoever the finance director was at that time, right? Well, gosh, maybe there was a problem and you weren't getting the things and we weren't prepared for the meetings and we didn't have the cool PowerPoints. Like, then you would have something to put on that form, but otherwise it might just be a click, 555, no comment done, right? And 30 seconds in and out.
Is spelling going to be part of the questions?
We'd make a multiple choices.
Just wondering, just one.
Well, what's your pleasure? What do you think? Would it be worth a try, or see if how the board feels about it? Or
If you connect to the board, see how they feel about it.
So it'd be a December action then, right, for the board?
just
It's not
refer it to the
noticed.
board?
Yes.
My concern for this year would be that it would likely not be able to be put into place for this year's evaluations. It would be something we would do going forward, just so we don't delay evaluations getting completed by
Right.
the end of the year.
Right.
And then give you some time to look at what kind of questions, what kind of tool you want to use. Maybe
Maybe the board isn't even interested.
Okay.
Okay. We should probably have a motion to refer this to the board.
I'll make a motion to refer evaluating the directors and administrators to the board. Having peer review for the committees. I think that's what it was.
Motion by Hackbar,
Second.
second by Pincinel. On the question, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so carried. Okay. Item 11, discuss and or action on exit interview practice. Again, Mr. Pincinel.
That was another Jimbo question. So we do these exit interviews and I don't know if they have ever come to the Human Resources Committee. But to me, in my mind, I would think that maybe the Human Resources Committee would want to know, like, well, gosh. They don't have heat in the office, so that's why I left, or, you know, whatever. Michael makes me shovel snow with my shoes off or whatever, right? Like, whatever that is, or, hey, you know, we have the greatest XYZ, but we didn't have this, so that's why I left. But the greatest XYZ is an important thing that we want to look at when we look at benefits packages and things like that. Maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like some of this stuff just goes in a file and dies and never, like, there's no, we looked at what these last 5 or 10 or 55 employees have said when they left of like, hey, we could do this better. Did it get fixed? Is it addressed? Or did it just go in the folder?
So it's a timely conversation because what's in our policy now does need to be updated. It's very brief what's in our policy, and it does address the department director and employee resource manager. And we don't have the employee resource manager position anymore, so it does need to be updated within policy. Right now, what our practice is that those are held with the administrator. There's a form, I included that in the packet, and then that's kept in the employee's personnel file. But a little bit to what Linda was speaking about, those things should not be brand new when you get to that point. If you're having these regular touch bases with employees and doing evaluations, you know, I meet with the department heads monthly, we meet as a group weekly, we have the quarterly all staff meetings, and then there's the departments are meeting as departments on a regular basis. You know, these things are coming up on a regular basis. There's not things shouldn't be big surprises when you get to that last point. It's really, you want to provide closure and you want to make sure that the staff member feels good about their service. And if they have other things that they want to express, I do think if it is shared with the employee, that what they are telling me will be provided it would be closed session because it relates to an employee, but would be shared with the HR committee. I don't know if some people would be as open as others. I don't think that's in every case, but I do think some people would be more reserved just because of that larger conversation. I think it's something that could be brought back in a total form. Like these are themes that we heard this year, or these are things that are reoccurring, but I don't think it would be this individual shared these items.
That was gonna be my concern. I was gonna go, how many, if, you know, they're talking to one person and it's going in a file, not being, you know, that you would get more people that would do it. Yes.
Yeah, so that was my intent of this, was not to, I don't want to see Joe's form, right? I want to see Joe and Susie and Bob's form, but I don't want to see their form. I want to see question 1. We had 3 people leave last year. This is what caused you to start looking for a new job. And if it's Michael made me shovel without shoes on, and Michael made me shovel without shoes on, and Michael made me shovel without shoes on, what did we do in the last year to get shoes for the guys that are shoveling snow?
I agree. I think that would be nice. I think you've got some great questions in that exit interview form. I looked at that. It can be difficult to summarize all that when it's all text and you're typing or you're taking notes, you might want to consider doing some sort of rating scale. Because then you can see over years how it's trending, whether, you know, they're saying our benefits are great, 1 through 5. Do you strongly agree or strongly disagree with that? Like how is that trending over time? And that's just really helpful data that you can look at year over year, because you don't have a large workforce. So you don't have a lot of exit interviews. And I agree, if they find out that their particular surveys coming, they're not going to be as open potentially, where summary data is great. We do quarterly review with our supervisors. It's neutralized. It's anonymous. They don't know who's saying what. And then annually we do a full report, and I do a full report to our board.
Rating scale is not that all of the questions would need to be rating scale, but on some of the key ones, rating scale would be helpful, because I get what you're saying. Then you would know, are you trending better or worse on those key questions?
Yeah, but some of them are just your commentary. You're having that in-person dialogue, which you can emphasize, which is great.
Yes.
Okay. So what are do you have any recommendations or what you would like to see or do, or?
I think if she's gonna be revising the manual anyways, this will be part of it.
Yeah, and maybe we put it to a future agenda that we put that revision back for the HR handbook. I could bring that back. We could look at it together, and maybe a piece of that is annually at the meeting in whatever month is the month that we look at it as a collective.
One thought process on updating your handbook is, I don't know if you should be doing exit interviews for involuntary terminations. It doesn't make sense to do those, because there's usually a reason they're involuntarily leaving. So you might want to just scratch that from the policy going forward.
Yeah. I'm thinking, that was pre-me, but I'm thinking that wording was maybe taken, and that might have been the practice then, but I would agree with you. That's usually not the practice now. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe this is something that we can talk about in future.
A future agenda.
Yeah.
It'll come back for a future agenda.
And have it kind of get an idea of what we want to do without interfering with the employee.
So I move to defer action until December 2024.
Okay, motion by Pensnell,
Second
by Hackburn. On the question, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Okay, item 12, 2024 budget amendments.
So in the packet, I have a couple different pages of budget amendments. The one is for Fund 10, so our general operations fund. I have the account numbers, the account titles, the year-to-date with the adopted budget from November of last year, and then the proposed amendment. And then the second page is going to be our capital projects. So with our borrowing that's coming up, the board approved a CIP plan with the borrowing, but this will officially adopt the amended budget for 2024 capital projects. As you review the proposed budget amendments, was there any questions with those? Yes.
So for the first line under parks hourly,
Mhm.
how do we currently, or don't we, like, okay, so we're doing the playground replacement thing, or we're doing whatever we're doing, right? How do we budget for that now? Right? Or is it just like,
So
oh,
when
we gotta
we
pay the parks
adopted
guys
the
anyways?
budget, we weren't doing those playgrounds. When we adopted it in November, we weren't quite sure the whole process, and we may have budgeted for buying the equipment, but there was no estimate on the parks and street effort that would be put forth to put those in. So that's where, when I budget the street guys, most of the street department, it's either winter maintenance, it's in street maintenance, or it goes to utilities. Very rarely, there's a few parks guys or street guys that work in parks during the year normally, but this was just a large amount of hours put forth there.
So this is the streets guys that work in the Parks Department doing that,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
And streets and parks are both general fund expenses too, but it's just which bucket in the general fund.
So if this were a planned for 25 to do this, would you go through your department and estimate like, well, I think I'll have 4 guys with 10 hours on this, so I'm gonna throw.
We would have
40 hours at
allocated
this?
more hours, yeah.
Okay,
I mean, if you look to, I mean, the winter maintenance hourly wages, a few down is a negative, you know, so.
I guess my question
Yeah.
is, when we go through and, I don't know, whatever the playgrounds were, $750,000-ish, right? So was it 750 that's spent for the equipment? And oh, by the way, we still have staff time, but the staff time isn't budgeted. Like the staff are getting paid anyways, right? Whether they're cutting the grass or they're.
Correct. Yeah, so the 700 odd number was for the contracted service of the,
Not the, okay.
not the in-house labor.
I guess that's a great idea. If we want to move labor there, we can. Give us, what it would do is give us a larger surplus in the general fund at year end. Was that a hint that we should do that?
Yes.
Okay,
Would you like the motion to reflect that when it's made for approval?
sure. So what I would do is, in the proposed amendment area, I'd probably not adjust it, but in that year-to-date column that you see, 11/30/2024, where the 42,000 is, those numbers would be reduced by an analysis of all the street department and parks department employees that put their effort into the playground instead of. And one of the ways I could do that is just picking up the street department during those months. I think they have their timesheets and they actually say what they do. So I could look through the timesheets and actually move the wages, and they would be moved to Fund 20. So Fund 20 is our grants fund. That's where we recorded the ARPA funds as a revenue. So we'd be coding the expenses there. They'd be taken out of the general fund. Is that something that we want to do, or do we want to keep all the parks employees and street employees' wages in the general fund?
Why wouldn't you do that? What's the downside of that?
The downside is that there would be less funds available for the Kennedy Park rehab that we're
I'm
doing.
just gonna ask that.
We did have excess though from the playgrounds. They came in under
They
budget.
did a little bit.
So we'd have to just do the math on how much less it would be, but I don't know it would be substantial because we were under budget there.
But right now, I think what the motion or the assumption is, whatever is left in ARPA after the playgrounds is going to Kennedy, so.
Right, right.
You're going to what? I'm sorry.
To Kennedy Park.
If that's really what it's used for though, right? Like, in my mind, maybe I'm crazy, but if we paid the contractor $750,000 to show up and put these things in the ground.
Mhm.
But oh, by the way, we had to, whatever site prep you had to do before that, that's part of the cost of the park.
Okay, yes, I agree.
Otherwise, you're not being honest with how you're actually using those funds. If we stole from streets or stole from parks or stole from wherever to actually get this other project done, it's not an accurate reporting of what's actually getting done.
Okay. I will do that. If you could include that in the motion when that is being made, I will make sure that gets to the board level also then.
The intent is not to steal from a future project, but just to accurately reflect where these resources are being
Right.
allocated. So it's not like, oh, well, we only spent. No, you didn't. You actually spent more than that.
Okay, so you want the line item that is taking it out of streets?
No, the first one, the park hourly wages.
Okay,
But it would be It would be all of those line items, right? Because that's all associated with playgrounds.
It would just be the ones that are in 55210. 55200, that does not include any street department. That's more of like Jess's and Clayton's time. And that's over probably because they didn't do any winter maintenance. The street department, regular employees such as Jess and Clayton, when they are in winter maintenance, when they're plowing, that goes to the street department. And with the lack of snow this year, it all got coded to parks because I normally work with Sean when there's no snow. So I would say I would only include the 55210.
Do you want that transferred to or transferred out?
That it would go to Fund 20.
Yeah.
So it's about $72,800, approximately $72,800 would go to Fund 20.
Okay,
Because it's the addition of those top 5.
okay, so what's your pleasure?
Recommend the village board approve the recommended 2024 budget amendments with the following changes, adding all of the transactions from 55210 into Fund 20 more accurately reflect the utilization of resources.
A motion, do I have a second?
Second.
On question? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Anything else? Just, motion to approve the 2024 budget amendments as,
Oh, we just did that, bro.
okay. Oh, you just, okay. I thought you just did that action of moving those funds, right? Remarks from committee members.
Before we went to your remarks, I just wanted to add, we will have 2 openings on the committee as of January 1. We did have an additional, Robin took a new role at Greenheck and needs to step away from the committee, but she will serve through the end of the year. I do have it posted on our website. I have it posted on Facebook. It'll be part of our weekly newsletters, but if you know someone that has an interest in serving, please let them know. It's $10 more as of January 1. It's $50 a week. But if you would happen to know someone, please share the posting with them.
Else?
Did you say you had 2?
Mm-hmm.
Who was the other?
The vacant one when Dave Gemlin, who was originally on finance, got assigned to this committee, and he's never, he stepped aside before this committee actually got together.
Yeah. So if you know anyone, that'd be good to have some HR experience.
That helped me.
Because as far as HR, I mean, I'm very limited and I don't know about anybody else, but you know.
There's me on that. Been doing it for a really long time.
Yes,
30
well,
years.
that's, you know.
But finance, I'm glad there's really great finance people here too.
I can't tell you I'm good at finance, but.
You know better than I do right
Well, I understand it, but I don't know if I want to do it anymore.
now.
Okay, anything else then? Remarks from chair, none. Future items, next meeting, where are we going to bring the, what was that?
The draft of the exit interviews. Yep.
Yeah. All right, anything else?
Is it 4:15 or 4:30?
It's 4:15. We're gonna have a tourism meeting for the final approval of the contract.
Got it.
So our next meeting will be December 16th at 4:15.
Move to adjourn.
By pencil to adjourn.
Second.
Second by Beckbarth. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye.